Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to the NBL Show presented by Fox Sport. I am your host, Josh Higgins, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jai Shadlow. Jai, mate, how you going? Welcome back to the NBL Show, and what's been going on?
Yeah, well, welcome back. It's been, a month, nearly 2 months since our last episode. So we've gone through Christmas, New Year's, into the new year. So it's good to finally be back and to discuss what's been happening. There's obviously been a ton of news over the last month and a lot of changes in terms of like where we were 2 months ago with the NBL standings and who were the hot teams. And I feel like it's just done a complete 180, which makes the league exciting and unpredictable. But outside of that, we've just been Josh and I have been doing our work with Fox Sports, trying to get as much info out there for everyone to read. But yeah, enjoying every part of it. And now we're in the final stretch with the, less than a month till final start, before the FIBA break and then final start. So It's going to heat up very quick.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting and exciting end of this season, I guess you could say as well. And like you mentioned as well, obviously, we've had some time away. We've been flat stick with all the articles and everything like that as well. But really excited to be back on the screens as well. So we've got an episode today, and then in a couple of days, you'll also see another episode coming out as well, an NBL show as well, but more based around some broader topics in the NBL. I think there's a couple of things that are kind of brewing in the backgrounds and all that sort of stuff as well that we want to kind of dive into a little bit more as well, answer some of your fan questions on that episode as well. So 2 episodes of the NBL show coming out this week. So hopefully everyone is all about that as well. But this episode, we're going to be really going in and touching on round 18. Now, as of recording right now, there's still a game to be played tonight. I believe the Brisbane Bullets and Illawarra Hawks are playing tonight. So it's going to be a very interesting game when you are looking at sort of those standings, which we'll touch on very shortly as well. But we'll jump into, I guess, a couple of these round 18 storylines. And I think one of them, and it was probably the biggest one, and it happened last night essentially as well. But it was the JLA and Christian Doolittle, I guess, spit. And I'll jump in here quickly, Jai, and just sort of, I guess, give a bit of context. Now, there's a couple of incidences which I've seen over this last season as well. Obviously, being at the Perth games, I get to cover those games a little bit closely, and you get to see some of the things that may not necessarily be on the cameras. I remember an incident, it would have been about maybe 2 months ago, where him and Sunday Detch were having quite a confrontational conversation heading into the halftime break that wasn't caught on camera at all. I remember writing an NBL Daily or putting it into talking points, I believe, as well, back in those sort of couple of months as well. But again, we're just starting to see this brewing effect, I think, with JLA, where I think there's frustration with him personally. I'm the $1 million man. I should be the closer. I'm the guy. This is my team. But it's obviously not his team. The reason he's a $1 million player is because he's a local player, and the Perth Wildcats, albeit, got really, really desperate and needed some marquee type player to come over, and he got paid $1 million as a result of that as well. But last night's game, I can completely understand his frustration. I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective on this though, Jai, but I can completely understand his frustration when Christian Doolittle was coming down the court and there is a wide open Elijah Pepper just to his left, and you don't know what that could lead to. Now, there's only 4.3 seconds left on the shot clock when he takes the shot, but there's a pass to Elijah Pepper for a three-pointer. If Jesse Edwards, I believe it was, who was on Joe Lawala-Chul, comes up, you've got a wide open lane for Joe Lawala-Chul inside. So I can understand the frustration in that point. But again, though, you're trying to make Christian Doolittle the closer for the Perth Wildcats, and that's sort of the shot that the closer does take, I guess, as well. So it's a bit of an awkward one here, but what did you kind of make of the whole situation?
Like from a fan looking in, it to me just looked like there was a lot of pent-up frustration that's been building for a while, and it just exploded then, because that was a pretty I'm trying to say it nicely, but I think JLA he should have kept that, whatever his outburst was, he should have kept it in the locker room and had a discussion with Doolittle. But obviously they're all humans. No one's immune to that type of emotion, especially after a close game like that. So just to go, we'll first start with the outburst. I think there's issues between those two they need to figure out. I think it's more JLA's frustration at the season. Like you said, he wanted to be the star man, but that team's not really built around to have the guy. Like there's a lot of players who are just, there's no elite tier Bryce Cotton player. They're all pretty, on the same level. And the frustration built from the play. So I think that was a bad shot, but then you could also label it to why they had 2 timeouts. Why didn't they use a timeout and make a play there that could probably factor in JLA? Because they didn't need a 3. So I don't know why they went for that Hail Mary shot. Elijah Pepper was wide open. Like you said, if Jesse Edwards came and closed out, could have passed to JLA for an easy dunk. So many things, and that's probably what really frustrated JLA. But to me, it looked like there was more to it. That's just like not a natural outburst like that because he kept going and going. And then poor Dante Russo Nance, he was coming over to help him out, and he just like blasted him. He shrugged him off so hard. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, he's just trying to help you out, and that was a pretty bad look, in my opinion. But there's, I think, really. In the post-match press conference is kind of like, brushed it off a little bit, saying he didn't see it and everything. But to me, there's something going on there, and they need to figure it out quickly because they're going to make finals, like playoffs and stuff, so they need to figure it out before then. But, yeah, it's not a good look.
No, it's an absolute horrible look when you look at it in totality. It even goes down to you got assistant coaches trying to cover up the camera. And, I've seen a whole lot of massive, I guess, backlash on that as well. And I think there needs to be a backlash on that. That is a moment where you are publicly putting yourself and those players are putting themselves in that situation where they are not inside a closed door, behind the scenes sort of operation. You are on the court still doing your stuff, and you don't have the right essentially to be covering that up because everyone in the arena can see that and everyone on the TV screen should be able to see that as well. And I didn't like that moment as well because that kind of made me feel like, this is kind of like oh my God, this is happening again. Like, we can't let people see this again sort of moment. Let me cover this up. But no one knows this has kind of been brewing in the background. But this clearly does happen quite a bit. And JLA, I don't know what it is with JLA because his media press conferences this season have been horrible. You are one of the top 4 or 5 paid players in the NBL this season. You need to be committing further than just your playing sort of commitments, I guess you can say as well. It comes down to a lot. You got to be an ambassador for the league. You look at Jack McVeigh, you look at Bryce Cotton, you look at Xavier Cooks, you look at those top paid guys. They're in the media. They're doing their thing. They're performing on the court, but they're also the show off the court as well. And that's what brings the NBL to a higher level. If you're $1 million paid player, you are one of the top 5 players in the NBL, and you are also one of the more intriguing players in the NBL as well. In every press conference, it looks like he's frustrated. He doesn't want to talk to the media. He blows them off. It's just like it's the media against him. Realistically, I think there's a lot of problems brewing behind the scenes with Joe Lawala-Chul, and I believe he's back next season as well. And that's going to cause, I think, a bit of an interesting situation there as well, where it just feels like there's a lot of egos on this team. And there's not that one guy. There's not that Bryce Cotton guy where you kind of all bow your heads to that one particular person. And it doesn't have to be Bryce Cotton, for example. It could be a Kendrick Davis. It could be even an Xavier Cooks to a degree, where you've got that kind of figurehead for your organization. And this is where I've always had the problem with the Perth Wildcats, of them not going with a closer and not having that guy, because it gets to moments like this where the frustration builds and you've got all these guys trying to figure out who's the chief, and none of them are. And that's what I think is even more frustrating as well. So, again, it's going to be a very interesting situation to see how they kind of group from that. That game yesterday, I'm sorry, but that was the most boring game of basketball, maybe until the last couple of minutes. Honestly, I couldn't stop yawning. Like, I was sitting up in the stands watching this game, took a mate with me to watch his first NBL game, and I said to him after the game, I was like, I'm sorry, mate, that was as boring as of a game I've ever seen in my life. Like, I was sat there, I think it was the second quarter, and I was actually watching the clock tick down. It was like 4 minutes 30, and then it was 4 minutes. And I was just going, man, this is going to be a long, another hour and a half of basketball. But nonetheless, the game got a little bit better as the game went on as well. And obviously that Milton Doyle 3-point shot, absolutely spectacular. Now, Jai, you've got a little thing that you want to touch on here as well regarding the Cairns Taipans, $1 million man, Jack McVeigh. Bit of frustration building in Cairns with Jack. What did you kind of observe?
Yeah, I think this one's not as bad as JLA's, which is kind of ironic considering, like, Cairns are completely out of it. They got nothing to play for the rest of the season. But obviously we saw the Marcus Lee just tip the dunk, complete brain fade. Marcus Lee, he has a habit of doing this sometimes, but it is what it is. They're just players at the end of the day. And Jack McVeigh had the halftime interview with Kelsey Brown, and he was just you could just see the frustration. But it was a comment. It wasn't a comment about the team at that play. He's like, our teammates need to step up. It's just not good enough. He made a comment after that where he's like, South East Melbourne Phoenix, they play hard basketball, but they play winning basketball. The way they play is winning basketball. And I took that as just like, are you insinuating that the way you guys play is not winning basketball? That's how I took it. And that probably, and then he went in the outburst and had the frustrations with Marcus Lee on the sideline. Will over. I think it was just a frustrated player who's carrying his team, and he's coming from the NBA, with the Houston Rockets and everything, and then he's come down. He's getting his money, but then he strikes me as a guy who would take a bit of a pay cut to be on a winning team, and money's not a thing for him. And so now he's coming to an organization where it's just a complete shit show. And then I'll probably transition this to the Adam Ford stuff. Like, I probably don't like Adam Ford as much as others. I think he's in the press conferences are starting to really frustrate me how, I don't know. He never takes accountability. He's always blaming his players. He has a really good way of talking where it makes it sound like he's, I don't know, providing good feedback to his players and stuff. But like the sole issue is not being mentioned. And I wish someone would just be like, well, you're saying all these things about your players and stuff, but is it something that you're teaching them? Is it a coaching issue? Because the players are always going to make mistakes. And I just think I don't know if anyone saw the last press conference, so I'm going a bit of a rant here, but he spent 7 minutes talking about, why the league is probably experiencing these injuries and stuff. And I'm like, that's cool and all, but he was laughing, making jokes. And I'm like, you've won 7 games this year. I think you're 7-20. You're worse off than last season. You spent all this money. And any other coach who was in this position for some reason, like we went hard on Stu Lash, and he had no experience, but they lost games and he got let go. I don't know why Adam Ford is so protected in this area. Like they're 15-41 in the last 2 seasons, like literally 15-41. That is an abysmal record. And they spend all this money, and I don't get it. So if he comes back next season, I don't know what's going on there. I think he's got some dirt on someone. But I don't know what. I just find it infuriating how a coach like that can just not take accountability and just be like, yeah, my mistake and everything. But then I just don't like the laughing and stuff. That's just me. That's my personality. But the players who clearly respect him and everything. But I just don't think after you keep losing by that much as well, that you should be joking around. You should probably be a little bit more serious.
Yeah, this is where in the next show that we do that I want to dive into a little bit more as well, just in terms of the expansion talks in the NBL. Like, I think that's where the biggest concern is. There's all this talk about the Gold Coast, but I look at Queensland basketball right now and I just kind of go, it's a mess. You've got the Brisbane Bullets who can't win a game, find a coach and keep a coach long term. You've got the Cairns Taipans who can't win a game. They've got a coach, but they don't ever want to go away from him either. And I think that's where it's a little bit frustrating. And like, it's one of those moments with an Adam Ford, for example, where I kind of look at and I kind of go, okay, there's a number of concerns that are outweighing just the on-court lack of success, and I think that's where the biggest problem is right now is I kind of sit there and I go, you've got no success, and I can't really see it coming forward in the future because I think you're going to lose a Sam Wardenberg. And that's all he talks about. That is the biggest problem for me in those press conferences. If I'm a player who's like a fringe player on that team, I'm a guy who is not an Andrew Andrews, a Jack McVeigh, or a Sam Wardenberg. If I'm anybody else, I am absolutely hating listening to his press conferences because all it is about is, oh, we don't have Jack. Oh, we didn't have Jack tonight. That's why we didn't win tonight because we can't win without a superstar player. Oh, we don't have Sam Wardenberg. Oh, we don't have Sam Wardenberg tonight. That's why we couldn't win this game. We can't win without a superstar player. Or Andrew Andrews, he's such a dynamic player. We can't win without him on the court, blah, blah, blah. It really frustrates me because I go, every other team around the league has been dealt injuries. Now, yes, have you had plenty of injuries and season-ending injuries to a lot of key guys? 100%. But they still rock up. You look at the Tasmania Jack Jumpers and what they're most likely going to do over the next couple of weeks. I think they'll still, we're not going to ruin the segment coming up, but I think there's still a massive chance of 6th place. But it's that culture and heart that is going to be the biggest defining factor for that particular team. That's what I don't think the Cairns Taipans have. And it's like any professional sport. If you grow up in an environment where you're consistently losing, I'll get it out eventually. That is not just a once-off thing. That is a habit that you form. You don't know how to win close games of basketball. You don't know how to win any game of basketball because you've never won those type of games. So that record of 15-41 is just, it's devastating for a number of reasons. And again, we look at Stu Lash and we were on him like white on rice not too long ago, and he got sacked. And I don't think Adam Ford needs to return next season. It's the type of coach now where they need to go and reassess. Do you get a development coach? Do you go try and get one of these big guys? You know, the Will Weaver conversation has completely died off. Is that a guy that you try to bring to Cairns to bring some sort of a culture, a bit of a reignited to that sort of franchise as well? Because I personally think, and this is just a very, very, and I'm going to cop a lot of heat from Cairns Taipans fans right now, but I think that team needs to be folded to then bring another team in, because there's just been no success. If they can't find private ownership, that is, I think it's night-night for the Cairns Taipans. What do you kind of make of those comments? Because I think private ownership right now is the most important thing for this team to ignite a little bit of money. And just, it's not just money into the actual team itself. It's money to the off-court stuff. It's to your high-performance facilities. It's to your staff. It's to everything like that. I think there's a bigger, broader picture that is not happening in Cairns that may be happening at other clubs around the NBL.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And the start of the season, they let Adam Ford go. He reportedly, wanted to go pursue overseas opportunities. There was nothing there for him. So they brought him back, which I felt was a mistake. And then the whole financial takeover, that was mounting, never happened. And then we went back to square one. And then they expected things to change because they made no changes. So I don't understand that. But I think that the team should be eventually dissolved if they're not going to be taking this seriously. And the records speak for themselves. The facilities, like you mentioned, facilities. I've spoken to some previous players over the course of the year and stuff, and they all mentioned that it's just not a great place to train because there's leaks in the roof and stuff. But that's not an ideal situation for bringing in new talent. And the issue is with Cairns as well. I don't think they want to spend the money to bring in new imports and stuff. Mohab King was probably the only change they've made this season.
Yep.
And he's a local. But if it was any other team, Admiral Schofield would be gone. He has not played well at all. I had him fourth best import coming into the season. There have been issues with his parents, got hip issues and stuff, but any other team would have been sorry, I pay you out, get an injury replacement player. But they just seem to not want to do that because it means they're more spending more money. There's a big issue there, and I think that the best outcome will probably be dissolve the team.
Yeah, now, Jeff, I want to dive into those injuries, though, because you got Alex Higgins-Titcher out for the season, Sam Wardenberg out for the season, Mawat Mag out for the season, Rain Smith's missed basically majority of the season, realistically. Admiral Schofield, like you mentioned, has been dealing with injuries all season long. Jack McVeigh missed a handful of games to start, early on in the season as well. There's injuries to franchises, and then there's injuries that are forced because you just don't have the right facilities, the right people behind the scenes to be able to stop that sort of stuff as well. That's the biggest concern right now. Is it's just there's a lot of season-ending injuries in the NBL. That's another topic for the next episode as well that I've got, but they've got a lot of them. And it's just a real big concern right now. But we'll digress anyways. We'll move on to, I guess, one of the biggest talking points. And firstly, I want to apologise to Brian Goorjian quickly off the top here. I went pretty hard on him at the start of the season. But I think, in a way, I think it was just. When I went pretty hard on him, the team was at 3-5. They were really struggling. There was no identity. I think the on-court success was quite poor. And I used just that start to this season and the whole of last season in the way that I thought about Brian Goorjian. And I didn't think that he'd encapsulated a modern-day coach in the NBL and how it has to happen with embracing players and embracing, their personalities both on and off the court. I just didn't think he'd nailed it. And I know there was a lot of concerns last season with the Jalen Adams and the Xavier Cooks towards the back end of the season and just a lot of things going on behind the scenes as well. But I was just a little bit worried and maybe a little bit quick to jump the gun as well this season when I looked at potentially a Kendrick Davis with all reports, with all his concerns and issues off the court as well, similar to, what Jalen potentially was going through last season, a little bit of a worry there. But they've turned it around incredibly well this season. And now we're going to talk about a topic. Are the Sydney Kings the new favourite, Jai, when we're looking at, the NBL 26 season where they could potentially this round jump up onto top spot if all things go their way and results go their way as well. So what do you make of it, mate? Are they the new favourites, do you think, in the NBL?
Yeah, just to start on your first point, when it comes to sports, I think sports is one of the rare, probably the only things in the world when it comes to opinions that are swayed so quickly. It's very recency biased with sports. You're not going to persuade me my favorite movies will never change. I've always liked them. But with sports, you only know what you know from what you see. We're never going to know the inner workings of a team inside the locker room and stuff. So at the start, I spoke to many people when Brian Goorjian was doing that 3 and 5 start, people, ex-players as well, and they were like, yeah, he's done. Like, it's just not looking good. We can only go off what we know and what we see. You can't just keep your mouth shut and be like, oh, we'll just wait 6 months until we get a result. That's not how sports work. They need instant opinions, instant feedback. And like, you're wrong, you're right. Like Ian Clark, I was blasting. First 5 games, terrible. Everyone had the right to say that. He did play like shit. Like that's just a fact. But now he's playing awesome. And now he's playing awesome. It's just like, that's how opinions work in sports. It's ever changing based on the results. So I don't think like you should apologize for that. That's just what was going on at the moment. Everyone was discussing that. But to your Sydney Kings championship, yeah, they're 100% the championship favourites. I did a stat, I think, before the season started, and I think it was the last 10 championship winners. All of them were in top 3 defensive rating and offensive rating. And Sydney Kings right now are number 2 offensive and number 1 defensive. So they're just looking really good right now. Torrey Craig is a ridiculous get. I did not expect this from a 35-year-old who hasn't played in a couple of months since he left Boston. But it's pretty scary of what they're going to do.
Is he the best acquisition, do you think, right now? Like, we're going to look across the league, and I think it's going to be interesting. Like, I mean, like mid-season, one of the guys that have come in, you know, like I look at right now, and I know it's pretty funny because they're the 2 latest acquisitions into the NBL, but him and John Jenkins, they're going to be scary propositions heading into the back end of the season. And I think that's where you kind of look at and you kind of go, okay, these 2 guys, you know, they're probably the staples of, if you're a team, and this kind of comes back to your Cairns point, if you're a team who has a struggling import and you move on, there is greener grass, you know, out there that you can potentially find as well. And I think that's what the Sydney Kings have found with Torrey Craig. He surprised me. You know, you talk about it, like he's joined a team who have won 11 of their past 13 games and who were missing that bull qual type of defender to be able to shut down a Bryce Cotton. Torrey goes and does that and then gives you 26 points. Bull can't do that. That's what they've been missing. They've been missing that 15 to 20 point scorer next to a guy and you know, with a guy who can defend at a high level against these top guys as well. So is he one of the better, I know it's very early to say, and this is, again, these are these opinions in sport, which we can jump on very quickly and jump off very quickly, but is he probably one of the better late season acquisitions that we've seen in the NBL over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's only been 2 games, but I think if he does this 3 more times, I would put him up there as the best. I think it's just insane of what he's doing so quickly, and only being with the team for like a week and a half. And, you know, to pair that with Kendrick Davis, who I think if by season's end, Sydney somehow get above Adelaide, he is a serious chance for MVP. Serious. And because I know, and I hate this ruling, I absolutely despise this in sports. I hate the voters fatigue. I think if a player keeps winning MVP, they have every right to win the next one if they're still performing at a high level. Just because voters are sick of them seeing winning all the time, big deal. Then have someone else needs to catch that person. Bryce Cotton is here. Kendrick Davis is here. Because what Bryce Cotton's been doing is just insane. But like, if Sydney do eclipse Adelaide but from Kendrick Davis, who have been doing without Matthew Dellavedova, I think it will be a very, very tight vote.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. And I've got a few stats here as well. So these are all from round 15 to now. So we're talking, you know, 3 rounds. But I think it's 6 games for the Sydney Kings as well. And this is where they've really started to, I guess, they've dealt with the injuries of Matthew Dellavedova and Xavier Cooks in this time. And they've also just brought in Torrey Craig. So number 1 in offensive rating, number 1 in defensive rating. And then Kendrick Davis is the big one. So you talk about what he's been doing. Since round 15, he's averaging 24.6 points, 8.1 rebounds, 8.1 assists, 3.1 rebounds on 53% shooting from the field and 38% shooting from the 3-point line as well. Career high, I saw on your X account there as well at NBL Pleb. It's career high in assists with 14, I believe it was, on the weekend as well against the Adelaide 36ers. I think he's starting to come back to that game and that play style, which made him so dynamic last season, of that facilitating guard as well as a scorer. But I think it's facilitating first now because I think he's starting to figure out, I've got Kawatnoy around me. I've now got Torrey Craig around me. I've still got Tim Suarez. I'm going to get Xavier Cooks back. I'm going to get Matthew Dellavedova back. I've got Jalen Galloway. He's starting to see the floor opening up a little bit. And that only makes it easier when you're a guy who can, by yourself, score 24.1 points per game. And you're a dynamic player. So I'm scared at the proposition of this. Like I said, they're a chance this round of overstepping the Adelaide 36ers considering results. So if Adelaide lose, I believe, one of their games, I think there's a chance of them jumping them. I might be wrong. They'll have to have a bit of a look at that later on. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting MVP race. I think the interesting part of it all is I think there's such a heavy bias towards Bryce Cotton because of the sustained success over the whole season and the career numbers in some aspects as well. But it's going to be a very, very exciting race. Now, Jai, we'll quickly have a little bit of a chat about who gets the 6th spot. I'm going to hand you a couple of little examples here of some statistics and who these teams are playing. And I want you to give me your thoughts and then just who gets the 6th spot in the NBL. So we're kind of down to, I guess, the Jack Jumpers, the New Zealand Breakers, and the Illawarra Hawks this season. Now, I think the easy one, when we look back and we sit back, we kind of go, okay, cool. With Sam Menenga ruled out, with Will Magnay, Bryce Hamilton, Majuk Deng, obviously a bit of a cloud there as well. The safest bet is the Illawarra Hawks, but I'm going to give you kind of the run home essentially and how hard it is as well. So the Illawarra Hawks will, out of their last 8 games, play 5 of the top 5 teams. So 5 of their 8 games they'll play against Adelaide, South East Melbourne, Perth, Sydney, or the Melbourne United as well. So that's going to be a very tough run home. And they're also, when you look at it, 3 wins behind right now the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. So they've just got to win 3 games to tie. And then out of those 8 games, they've got to win a couple more, I think, to secure that 6th spot. That's going to be a tough run home. Now, for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, they've obviously got one of those sort of runs home where they've actually got 3 of their final 5 games they play, or their last 5 games, sorry, the Taipans, the Breakers, the Bullets. I think very easy could win all 3 of those, to be honest with you. And then they play the Phoenix and the Hawks to finish the season off. If they win 2 of those games, I think they're a lock to make the top 6. I think that's just the way it is. And then you've got the Breakers as well, who have 3 games against the top 5 in their last 6. So again, you're looking at, I think it might be the Adelaide 36ers, the South East Melbourne Phoenix, and maybe Perth, I think their last 3 games with those top 5 teams. So with all things considered, with the Jack Jumpers being 2 wins, I believe, ahead of the New Zealand Breakers and 3 wins ahead of the Illawarra Hawks, are any of those other teams besides the Jack Jumpers a chance of overstepping the Tasmania Jack Jumpers and taking the 6th spot, Jai?
It's a lot harder now that Bryce Hamilton's out. So I do my obviously on my Fox Sports to do the NBL run home, and so with that I do a point system, a rating system based on the upcoming teams. We'll use Tasmania, for example. So I look at Tasmania's upcoming schedule, who they're playing, and then I calculate that team they're playing, where they are in the standings, where they are offensive rating and defensive rating, and then I just divide that compared to the other teams, and I get the score. So Tasmania, out of those 3, Tasmania had the best score of 6.5, which I rate slightly easy in my categories, compared to New Zealand, who have 4.4. So lower the number, the worse it is. So 4.4 means very hard. And then Illawarra 4.8, which is hard. So based on that and the upcoming schedules, I just can't see. And now with Breakers losing Menenga, which is huge, no Rob Baker, like I can't see a world, maybe Hawks, maybe, just maybe, but they cannot slip up once. They have to get the win. So who have they got next? So they've got Sydney. No, not Sydney.
Yeah. They got
Sydney,
Brisbane tonight, and then
Brisbane, Sydney. Yeah. Then they got Sydney, loss. Perth, probably a loss. Then they got Adelaide, probably a loss. New Zealand playing away. And then they got Sydney, then Melbourne. Like, it's such a tough schedule. It is so tough. And based on I know they beat Tasmania, but Tasmania are not fully fit. Illawarra are. It didn't invoke a lot of confidence in me, so I'm probably just going to stick with Tasmania just to scrape in.
They could be a team, though, that comes home with a flurry. Like, if they knock off a few of these teams, make the top 6, they'll have that belief. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Not a chance. I don't think there is a chance that the Illawarra Hawks win. Again, we have the sort of, I guess, grace of looking at the season in its totality, and they have been absolutely horrible. They have been, there's a number of words we could use about this team, but they have been absolutely horrible. So, yes, I'm with the Grants. I think the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, as hard as it is going to be without Bryce Hamilton, again, either of those 3 teams make it, they've got no chance, I think, of going all the way at all. So it doesn't really matter. It's just going to come down to who's playing who in the play-in sort of game as well, and then sort of going from there throughout the final series. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned with all these other teams, but I think the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, with the way they've set their season up, that little run over the past couple of months has been enough probably to hold them and make the finals as well. But again, it's disappointing. I would have loved to have seen a Sam Menenga and Parker Jackson Cartwright led New Zealand Breakers into the finals and see what they could have done, because I think they've caused a bit of a stir over the last couple of weeks. Look at the round that was. Lost to the Phoenix, lost to the Adelaide 36ers, two of the best teams in the competition. And it wasn't like they got blown out of the water. They were competitive games all the way through. So I think it's going to be a very interesting final series nonetheless, but it's probably down to the top 5 anyways. But Jai, let's move on to a little bit of the awards season. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at a couple of the awards and just giving our predictions as well. A very short, sharp, and sweet segment as we then move into the round coming up as well. But we're going to do our NBL first and second team predictions as we currently sit right now. And then just also touch on who our biggest disappointment or surprise in our team or left out of our team was this season as well. So we'll do it with our second teams first, mate. So I've got Parker Jackson Cartwright, Bryce Hamilton, Christian Doolittle, Jack McVeigh, and Joe Lawala-Chul as my second team. What have you got for your second team, though, mate?
It's a slightly similar, but I've got Jack McVeigh, JaVale McGee, Bryce Hamilton, Christian Doolittle, and Tyson Walker.
So, yeah, so the differences there, obviously, Walker, McGee, and that's pretty much it. So Walker and McGee for compared to mine, obviously, and then we'll get into our first teams as well. So my first team, I've got Cotton, Davis, Sobey. I've actually thrown in Josh Bannon into mine, and Zylan Cheatham is my 4-5 combination. And what about yourself, mate?
My first team is Bryce Cotton, Kendrick Davis, Nathan Sobey, Zylan Cheatham, and Parker Jackson Cartwright.
So now, I guess when you look at our teams, you kind of sit there and you go, what is going on? Jai's got 4 point guards essentially in his team with one big. There's a lot of weird things going on. But with these awards, it's positionless. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a two point guards or 2 shooting guards or whatever the case is, and 2 forwards and a center. It can be whatever you want. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So obviously a guy like Jack McVeigh, I've pushed in there for full transparency. A guy who's had a career year. I think he's been incredible. 20 points per game, has been dominant. But I've left off JaVale McGee because I think at Jack McVeigh, I just think he needs to be in there. As bad as his team has been, he's had a career season. For me, though, I've gone with Joe Lawala-Chul over a JaVale McGee, trying to keep, I guess, some sort of point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center type of structure to my team. Now, do I think if I was realistically looking at it, I'll probably have JaVale McGee over a Jack McVeigh personally. You know, like if I wanted to go that full positionless thing, but I'm looking at who's the best team I could fit down with all these NBL guys as well. But what do you make of the teams, mate? Because I think there's like, we'll sort of dive into, a couple of our surprises and all that sort of stuff as well. But there's a couple of big names left off. Sam Menenga's kind of one of the big ones. I think that people will be on the edge of when it's coming down. I think his injury now is going to rule him out of All-NBL contention. But there's still a couple of big names who kind of miss off the list as well. But what do you make of the two teams?
I think they're like, it's obviously, these are just opinions. Like, not everyone's going to be right, and they're just based on stats and how we feel. Standings do play in it. Like, I know Kendrick Davis' first team last season, but Adelaide finished 6th on the ladder. So but he played extraordinary, so that probably supersedes that. But I think standings play a little bit in it. But I put JaVale McGee in there because he's a 20-10 player. Mm-hmm. He's a freak on the court. Probably not the best for winning games for the Illawarra Hawks, which I think everyone knows that. But yeah, you can't deny his dominance. And like, I left out JLA because I just think he's playing under what his potential is. I think there's deeper issues with him, and his free throw shooting is abysmal. Like, to put it lightly, it's so bad. And then someone like Sam Menenga, like he'll be there for most improved. Like, probably win it with Flynn Cameron. But if you want to get like really down into it and be like positions and what a player does on the court, like John Brown should be one of them. Like, what he does on the court, but he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Like, Shea Ely won it, and Shea Ely wasn't in the first or second team last season, but he's back to back. So they're going to be players missing. I wish at the start of the season, I wish Tyrell Harrison was going to be in there because I love Tyrell Harrison, but unfortunately concussions is just making that too difficult. But yeah, I think that they're pretty good. Like, looking at yours and mine, I think everyone will have pretty similar. Like Josh Bannon was probably a big surprise one for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that was my biggest surprise. And one name I want to add in there as well. Casey Prather is an All-NBL first team type of player. If he finished the season off, he would have been definitely in that All-NBL first team conversation. I think even just as bad as Brisbane would have been with him or without him. I think he's an All-NBL first type player as well. So, but yeah, Josh Bannon, he was definitely my biggest surprise when looking at it across the board, for a number of reasons. Obviously, career highs in points, rebounds, assists, offensive rebounds, field goal percentage, everything across the board has been incredible this season for me as well. So I know the Jack Jumpers have probably had a bit of a up and down type of season, and they do sit in that 6th position. But what he's been able to do is that probably typical power forward and small ball 5 has just been incredible. There was Derek Rucker last season, basically being one of his biggest haters, calling him, an 8th or 9th best man, on a team and a championship contending team. That's where he saw him. Now, Bannon's pretty much just gone, stuff that, stick that one up here. And I'm one of the best players in the NBL, looking at his numbers across the board. So he was my biggest surprise. Who was your biggest surprise, mate? Because you've got a pretty good one there as well.
Yeah, so just going on Bannon, that season, he's the best. He has the most rebounds in a Jack Jumper season. No one has more. Like, that's just insane in your first year. So mine was Tyson Walker. I think Tyson Walker, but prior to the injury last night, I think he'll be fine though, has been playing unreal basketball. I think there's been times when United have been without Golding, Shea Ili and stuff. He's really stepped up. One of the best defensive guards in the league. He's up there with steals per game. And so I did a stat here with his 8-game stretch. He's averaging 16 points, 2.6 rebounds, 5.2 assists, and nearly 2 steals a game. I really like him. I think he's deserving of an All-NBL second team at least. He's pretty calm, cool, collective type of character, and better offensively than I thought when United signed him. But I think he should be one for people to look out for because, I think he's just had a really under the radar season.
Yeah, I think he has as well. First year pro or second year pro, first year in the NBL, he's had an incredible season. And they've been strong all season as well, Melbourne United. So I couldn't agree more there as well. Now, let's just dive into our quick little round 19 look ahead. We've got 2 little topics here that we kind of want to touch on as well. I sort of want to touch on this one quickly before we end the show. Tassie's last chance or Tassie's chance to assert themselves as a finals contender, and I think a finals lock. This round they versed the Cairns Taipans and the New Zealand Breakers. They win both those games. I think it's locked. They're the 6th seed. That's as simple as it is. You lose one of those games potentially, and it's the Breakers game. That door opens up slightly, but I think they'll beat the Taipans and I think they'll beat the Breakers as well. So I think they'll secure themselves as that number 6 seed. But I guess the big one that we want to maybe dive into a little bit is this is the chance, I think, when we're looking at it potentially for the South East Melbourne Phoenix or the Sydney Kings to take top spot. Now, everything has to go their way. So when you kind of look at it, you've got, the Phoenix playing the 36ers and the Wildcats. So they can topple the 36ers and potentially move on par with them as well. The Kings play the Hawks and the Taipans as well, and are only 2 games behind them. And the 36ers play the Phoenix and the Bullets. So if they beat the Bullets, they can be tied with the Phoenix if the Phoenix win both their games this week. But if they lose that game, then obviously it brings the Sydney Kings into it as well, who I think will win both their games against the Taipans and the Hawks. So I can't see them losing to the Bullets. Let me just put that right here. But again, there's a little bit of the fairy tale and the excitement in me that one of these teams could actually overtake the Adelaide 36ers right now, where a month ago, that just didn't seem like a reality. So is there going to be a change at the top when we're talking this time next week, Jai?
Probably not. Just it's hard. It probably won't stay the same just because Adelaide are going to beat Brisbane. I think it's the second last Ignite Cup game.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. And I think they'll just blast them out of the water because I think it'll be Adelaide versus Breakers for that. I just can't. It'll get even. Like I think the Phoenix Perth one is a big game. Because I think Perth want to come back after that loss last night. Because if they beat United yesterday, they would have gone up to 4th. So I think they're going to be very hungry to get back to that position to try and get that spot. Sydney going to beat Illawarra, and then they've got Cairns. That is literally 2-0. That's I guarantee you. I'd be shocked if they lost one of them. With how Adelaide's playing, it just not great defensively, but they'll put 120 points on Brisbane. I don't think there'll be much movement, but there'll be closer striking distance. So when round 19 or 20 comes along, that's like the difference maker there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's going to be a very interesting round nonetheless. And again, this end of the season, I think we're going to see some top, changes at the top, I guess, as well. I think the LA 36ers, realistically, they can finish as high as first and they can finish as low as third. And that's a big thing when you're looking at it as well. They're going to be wanting to fit into that top two no matter what. They want to go straight through the semifinals and to be able to host a home semifinal series as well. And then potentially how, depending on results go, host a home grand final series. So it's going to be very interesting. The end of the season is coming very, very shortly. But as always, you can check out all of our content at foxsport.com.au for all the latest news, topics, everything going on over there. We've got some incredible pieces, as always, coming out and always keeping up to date with the biggest news topics in the world. But like I said as well, we're going to be recording another episode after this one right now, which will be posted in a few days with a couple of the biggest talking points around the NBL as well. So looking forward to getting your feedback from that one anyways. But John, mate, another incredible episode. It feels good to be back. And you got any thoughts to close us out here as well on another episode of the NBL show?
Yeah, it's great to be back. I think we're going to try and get this consistently back out. I think it's good to be able to engage with everyone and just I think Josh and I may be a bit more blunt and honest towards the NBL and the feedback and the players and stuff. But we don't shy away from that. So if we say anything you don't agree with, just let us know, and we're happy to debate, have this discussions and stuff. But it's always healthy. Anyone who's talking about the NBL helps build the organization in the league. So we're always here for it. And like you said, we're going to do another episode after this to discuss things that are happening more outside of this season and what's going to happen in the future that could affect the NBL.
No, definitely. Looking forward to that one as well. But yeah, as always, make sure you subscribe, like, comment down below as well. And like Jai said, engage with us as much as you can. We're both on X at Josh Higgins Fox and at NBL Pleb. So go over there. That's probably, I guess, the easiest way to probably communicate with us and get in contact with us as well. And you can leave things like fan questions every time we put a post out there for these particular episodes. We will answer your questions as best as we can as well. But thank you very much for joining us on another episode of the NBL show, and stay tuned for the next couple of days when another episode pops up with plenty more content. But until then, thank you very much.